Wife had emotional affair. I had a hookup? My wife and I have been married 16 years. We have 3 children. 18, 15, 11, 10 years ago my wife had a total hysterectomy at the age of 28. She never did any hormone replacement. She also has other health issues, rheumatoid arthritis, possibly fibromyalgia. My wife has never been much of a giver and not very affectionate. Things got progressively worse after her hysterectomy. I always felt belittled, always was walking on eggshells, could never express my feelings without getting stonewalled or it turned around on me. I turned to corn and it was a coping mechanism. In 2016 my wife had a friend die. In the months after my wife was trying to be there for her friend's ex-husband. I noticed them texting all of the time and eventually went through her phone one night while she was sleeping. She was sending him selfies that she never sent to me, he was getting attached and there were messages saying he didn't think he could stop himself from kissing her if he was drunk, messages of him asking her to stop by for a hug etc. She never said anything that I read to tell him that she wasn't into it. I confronted her and was met with, "What do you expect? I can talk to him. I can't talk to you," and other stuff like that. I told her that she needed to cut communication with him out and she did. About a year or so later I noticed that she friended him on Facebook despite my wishes. She eventually deleted him. Around that time that I confronted her about the emotional affair, she also had a best friend, single woman with a kid the same age as my son, who was always at our house or they were hanging out. I felt like a third wheel at best, felt like I didn't matter. I was watching porn and masturbating 2 to 3 times a day because it was the only way that I felt that I could stay sane. Every time I brought up intimacy I was never met with reassurance. I could never do anything right, meaning I was always told of all the negatives that I was doing. During that time we were also dealing with my mother having colon cancer and there were some issues between my mother and my wife. In November 2017 my mom died. I never felt like I could talk about my feelings to anyone, let alone my wife. I had been in the army 14 years at that point and was always taught that you're weak if you have mental things going on. Alcohol, or hooking up would solve it. My wife was a crisis social worker so her point of view always seemed to be very rigid and clinical with not much regard to my feelings. Well, in about later half of 2018 I was feeling completely broken, turned to a dating app and ended up chatting with a woman for a few messages. It was clear that she wanted to hook up. She invited me over to her house and within 5 minutes of me being there, we were naked and hooking up. I was there for about 45 minutes and went home. I stayed on the app, the woman and I talked a few times after. She wanted me to come back over. I never did. In January 2019 my wife found the app on my phone and read the messages and was completely broken by my actions. I blamed it on my corn addiction but still to this day cannot say my true wants or desires to her without it being spun back around to me being a cheater. Fair point, I did cheat, it's been 5 years since she found out. We are still together but I still feel so lonely, like a roommate. She doesn't touch me, she doesn't initiate sex, it seems like a 1 every 2-ish week chore for her. She doesn't ask how I'm doing. I go to therapy every other week and if she asks about what we talk about and I tell her, I'm met with, "Well, what does that have to do with your mental health?" I've been working on myself constantly over the past 5 years. Stopped watching porn, therapy, trying to show her how important she is to me, trying to make her life as easy as possible. I started testosterone replacement therapy, my levels were super low, started working out again and losing some weight. But I feel like I'm met with anger and moodiness most of the time. I don't see much effort from her to be all in. Anyone have advice?